Hey there, Vikings. Welcome back to the playthrough. So, at the end of our previous session, we had just finished crafting a bow and arrows, and we had also hunt a couple of deer in order to showcase the mechanics behind the bow and arrow, but we did forget to mention one of the major mechanics behind it, which is charging up your shot. So, when you are holding down your attack button whilst holding the bow, you'll notice there's a white circle in the center of your screen that's slowly closing into your crosshair. That is the power and the range of your shot. The longer you hold that, the farther it will fly and the more damage it will do. The only thing about that mechanic is that you are constantly using stamina the longer you hold that shot, and especially when it's at maximum, it is going to keep draining your stamina, so best thing to do is to kind of time it as soon as that white circle closes onto your crosshair, fire your shot straight away, and then let your stamina recharge if you're nearly empty. So you will have to pay attention to your stamina level whilst you're using a bow and arrow. It's the same with pretty much every weapon in the game. You obviously need to keep, stamina regen and stamina resource is something you need to manage whilst in combat and farming and gathering and pretty much everything in the game. So, yeah, just make sure to keep an eye on that whilst you're using a bow and arrow so that you don't waste any shots. And for the start of today's session, we are just going to go out and hunt some deer. One of the goals of today's session is to craft a leather armor set. Now, we will have a few other requirements in order to start making that set, which I will go over once we get to them, but we are just going to go out for this time being and hunt some deer, hunt some more boar, stuff like that. And one other thing I would like to get started on this session is to start a boar farm, which is something I've been looking forward to doing, as taming animals on the game is quite cool. I do like doing it, although it is very time consuming. And again, we'll cover that once we get to it. So for now, we're just going to go out and start hunting. So let's crack on with that, shall we? The other main objective I have for today is to explore some more of the nearby area. Ideally, I am looking at finding some areas of Black Forest, which is our next biome. I would like to find some areas of this as soon as possible so that we can mark them on the map so that we know where they are, and hopefully we'll find some that are a bit closer to home so that once we've defeated Eikthyr, we can pretty much just head straight there. We don't have to spend too much time exploring after defeating the boss to find the next zone. Now, you can get lucky with your spawn and have quite a bit of Black Forest spawn right next to where you decide to build your base, but sometimes you will find that Black Forest is quite difficult to come across, so it will be something you'll have to kind of keep an eye out for whilst you're out exploring. The first time you enter a new biome, it will come up with a big message in the middle of your screen saying Black Forest or mountain, plains, all that kind of stuff, so it's very obvious when you do step into it for the first time, but you'll also notice a change in the actual biome that you stood in. It does look very different, even though the Black Forest is a forest-type biome, so it should look quite similar to the Meadows, but the style of trees change, the ground changes, and you'll even be unlucky enough, you might come across some of the Black Forest enemies as well, which are particularly dangerous. It's one of the reasons we crafted the shield as soon as we did. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out for any of the new zones. Hopefully we can find the next one and then mark it on the map so that we know where to go once we've defeated that first boss. just quickly, if you heard those 3 kind of short barks just then, they were a little bit high-pitched, that's the sound of a deer. Now, deer are a bit of a pain in the backside because you can hear that sound and you can also tell which direction it's coming from if your volume is high enough, but sometimes you'll turn in that direction and start walking towards where you think the sound came from and it's not actually there. So sound does travel in the game a fair bit. You might have to keep your eye out, and then sometimes you might start sprinting towards it thinking, oh, it's just around this corner, and then you'll get there and the deer's not actually stood there, or it'll be stood to the right of you and then it'll get startled and start running away. So hunting deer can be a bit of a pain in the backside, so it's something to be aware of. But what you are listening out for is those kind of 3 short barks. Is it kind of like a bark sound? I'm not really sure what sound deer actually make. This could be quite accurate in terms of how deer actually sound in the wild. I don't live in a forest, so I don't really know what they sound like. But yeah, it's a kind of like a higher pitch kind of short bark that they do. They do 3 of them in a row. And yeah, obviously you can tell that second deer that we had there that they got startled by my closeness. I think they were looking at me as well, so it was a lot easier for them to spot me. But yeah, hunting deer can be a bit of a pain sometimes, but luckily enough, 1 deer can give you anywhere from, I think it's 2 to 4 deer hide. So you are quite fortunate in terms of the amount of hide you get from 1 of them. Ah, so this is an abandoned village. I was kind of hoping we'd find one of these. They are pretty cool. I quite like them. They're very thematic towards the whole Valheim Viking theme that the game's got going. But it's also, we mentioned these in our first episode where we found an abandoned building and I was explaining that you should probably check them out every time you find them, because you can occasionally find chests with some goodies, and you can also find beehives which give you queen bees to make hives back at base and produce your own honey. So yeah, I'm pretty glad we found one of these. Fingers crossed there's a beehive in here, although there's a few buildings, so maybe we'll get lucky. But the other thing I like about villages as well is that they will usually have these kind of fenced off areas which have raspberry bushes in them. It's kind of like the villagers who used to live here grew their own raspberries. Sadly, I don't believe there's a way that we can grow our own in the game. We can't even transport the bushes themselves. It's literally just a case of you find raspberries when you come across them, you can mark them on the map and stuff like that. But I don't think we have the ability to grow the bushes yet. Hopefully maybe there'll be a tool in future where we can dig up the bush and transport it. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, this is just an abandoned village. I quite like these. There are some different versions of them in different biomes later in the game. But these ones are pretty cool, as it's just you could also use this as like a beginning starter area. If you weren't so confident in building, or if you didn't want to do much building, you could always just adopt one of these houses, fix the roof up and put a different bed down and claim it as a house. I mean, they're quite small, I will say, but it's not a bad place to get started if you've just started a game and you're on hardcore and on the hardest difficulty and you don't have enough wood to build your own house, or you don't have the materials you need. You could always just come across one of these and fix up the house and the roof and stuff like that and use that as your own quick little hut to sleep through the night. So yeah, these are pretty cool. We're just going to check out the buildings and hopefully we'll find a beehive. Okay, yep, that's Black Forest directly in front of us. Just in front of that small stone, those pointed trees, those are the pine trees for the Black Forest. I could recognize those 100 miles away. I definitely have seen those about 1,000,000 times before in all the hours I've played this game, so I think we'll just leave a quick marker on the map for them, and then we'll leave that area be. We don't plan on going in there just yet. I don't even have an armor set other than the basic rags that I'm still wearing. So yeah, we're going to hold off on going in there, but we'll mark it on the map just so we can come back here in future when we've defeated Eikthyr, so we know where to get started. I'm glad we found some quite early on, but we don't know how big the biome is going to be. It could be quite small. We might have to go hunting for a larger zone of it to fully make use of everything we want to find in there, but I'm glad we found it this early. Oh dear Christ, I was really hoping we wouldn't find this early. Okay, this is going to be fun. Although I can use this to showcase one of the other debuff mechanics in the game currently. So, this white flooring in front of us, this is a mountain. Now, we are not supposed to be anywhere near here right now. This biome is technically the 4th biome that we will be entering. We have the Meadows to start with, the Black Forest is the second one, there is a swamp after the Black Forest, and then the mountain. So, yeah, we probably definitely don't want to be here, but whilst we're here, I might as well showcase one of the freezing mechanics from the mountain. So, when I was talking in the first episode about clothing that is able to help you get rid of the cold debuff, that clothing, the first time you encounter it is when you get to the mountain, because if you'll see in a second, come on, there we are, you are freezing. So, the freezing debuff is a debuff that only really affects you on the mountain. Obviously, it's freezing cold because it's a mountain and there's bloody snow everywhere, but because we don't have any clothing that gives us any warmth, we're taking constant damage. You can see those little number 1s flying off the top of my character. That is cold damage. Now, 1 damage every second isn't that bad, but it is constant, and it will deal more damage than your passive health regeneration in the game. So you could spend a little bit of time on the mountain, but eventually you would die to that freezing damage. So I would highly recommend avoiding the mountain until you're ready to go there. There is a couple of things you could do on the mountain. There's even a creature on there you could tame as well if you wanted to take that risk, but I definitely wouldn't recommend it if you are quite new to the game. It's a big risk. I'm not even going to try it, and I've tamed that creature about 100 times. So we'll hold off until we actually need to go to the mountain before we try and do that one. But yeah, that's another one of the biomes. I'm really surprised that this is this close to our starting location. Like a mountain that close? I've seen it a couple of times before in previous playthroughs, but it's rare. It's rare to find a mountain that close, especially with it being a mid-game biome. But I suppose that's just the way that this world has generated itself. Pretty happy to have found it though. We're going to mark that so at least we know where it is in future. I do have to say that we are finding an exorbitant amount of boar on this Meadows area. Like this exploration that we've been doing, this little farming session, we have found a lot of boar. This is really, really pushing me towards making a boar farm if there's this many of them. I have been exterminating a lot of them when I've seen them, which is not good for the actual ecosystem of boar in our little Meadows section, but with this many of them, I'm pretty certain there might be a couple near our base as well, so I think I might actually go and set up a boar farm, or at least sometime soon. All we're really going to need for it is a bit of wood and some raspberries, and obviously a couple of boar as well, but yeah, I think we might actually go and do that. I think we'll just try and find a couple more deer. We've got a fair bit of deer hide and some leather scraps as well, so we're doing okay on our gathering sessions so far. We've definitely found a couple of new biomes as well, so we're doing okay with this session so far, but I think we're getting close to the point where I want to go back and actually set up the boar farm and get that going so that we can craft some more bits and have some boars breeding whilst we're out on our next expedition. There are some other places I will need to go and find in this Meadows biome before we decide to move on. There are some crypts as well that I want to keep eyes open for. Now, again, I will cover this in more detail when we actually find it, but there is another area that we're wanting to find in the Meadows before we think about going to Ep04, which is a crypt. Now, crypts they're not difficult to find, they aren't quite high in number. They are more frequent in the Black Forest, but you can occasionally find them in the Meadows as well. Now, crypts have a very important item in them, which we would definitely need for the Black Forest, so hopefully in our next expedition we're going to spend a bit more time out and about and try to find a crypt or two, just so we can, hopefully we can get lucky and find some of those items that we're going to need. But yeah, I think for now we're going to continue doing a bit more hunting, and then we'll head back and start our little boar farm. Okay, so just repairing up our items now that we've returned back home. We're going to dump items in the chest. There was one item I picked up in the abandoned village that I didn't cover at the time. It's this little yellow item in our bag here called amber. I'm just going to dump it in this chest here. So amber is a valuable item which we will need to sell to the merchant to give us some more money. That's the only thing it does. You can't use them for anything else. There are other items that have that description as well. But yeah, we need valuable items in order to sell to the merchant to make some money, as the merchant has a lot of stuff that's worth a lot of money, so we're going to need a fair bit of it. You can find gold around, but there isn't much of it. The valuable items will be the majority of where you actually get your gold from. And I want to build myself a flint spear now. I should have the items for that one. Can't see the actual deer hide in here, the deer hide armor, but let's just make this spear first. So the flint spear is the next upgrade. We're going to need that for the Black Forest and a few enemy types in there. And, yes, so the reason why we haven't got the leather armor set available in the crafting list yet is that we haven't upgraded our table. So let's just craft ourselves an upgrade. There's 2 options available. Oh, no, we won't, because we haven't got the materials for them. We need 10 wood and 10 flint. And it's dark outside, so yeah, I think we'll just go to sleep now, and then we'll go hunting for some more flint at the start of the next day, so that we can make this upgrade and craft this leather armor.